Everyone on the call, we're about to start. To please mute your audio. Sir, we start now.
Roger.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's webinar. I'd like to call upon Mr. Paul Jensen,
participants, which our platform did not allow. We have since upgraded that. Nonetheless, just for the benefit of everybody, EBTC is the European Business and Technology Center. We work a lot with the European Business Group, specifically on business issues pertaining to collaborations between Europe and India. And as part of the business support project to the EU-India policy dialogues, you will know we have created in the process of creating an aviation cluster that will also support this, and I'm looking forward personally to listen to you all. I mean, here in Raman, over to you.
Over to.
As you all are aware, the aviation sector has become a catalyst as well as the enabler of global economic activities, including our internal domestic economic activities over the last decade. In that period, the aviation sector has grown steadily at 11% annually, but it is going to take the major hit due to COVID-19. It may take almost 60 to 70% fall in the travelers' footfalls, and which will lead to a physical loss of 25,000 crores to 30,000 crores in this very physical. Efforts to start domestic flights between the green zones has not found favor with the operators for economic reasons. More importantly, 90% of the aircraft are locked up at Delhi airport. So without energizing the Delhi airport, I do not see any possibility domestic air operating between green zones alone. Not only this, the safety requirements of safe distances within the aircraft and other measures required to be taken are going to force economic fall for the operators. They have to find a new normal where a passenger can afford the flying, which is going to be rather difficult. As for the airports are concerned, their operating procedures will have to change to adjust to the post-COVID environment. Not only this, I personally feel their revenue model of running the airport and revenues to the Airport Authority of India itself and the Government of India will have to evolve a new working arrangement wherein the aviation sector remains viable sector to operate. As far as the FAST is concerned, the Foundation for Aviation and Sustainable Tourism, I wish to bring to the notice of all that we are having a large number of senior officers and experts with us in aviation as well as in tourism. It will be our pleasure to act as facilitators between the industry and the aviation and tourism ministries. You are welcome to request us or ask us to offer any help. Now, to proceed with the webinar, I'll request Raman Sidhu to take on from here. Thank you.
Request now the first speaker, Mr. Arvind Singh, IAS officer of the Maharashtra Cadre 1988, also a fellow economic honors student from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, where he also went on to do his master's.
So thanks for giving me this opportunity at a crucial time. And as mentioned by Raman and General Seth in the introductory remarks, I mean, many of you have been in this sector, and all of us know the contribution that the sector has been making to economic development globally, and also to the Indian economy in particular. And in India, the last few years before we were all hit by this once in a 100-year black swan event caused due to the coronavirus, the aviation sector was booming. And while there were, muted reports of recovery and growth in different parts of the economy, the aviation sector was something that was clocking year-on-year growth, a double-digit growth in some years. And if you drill down the growth pattern into different parts of the country, what we saw in the 3 years of preceding the corona was that there was phenomenal growth happening in tier 2 and tier 3 cities of the country in terms of passenger traffic growth, the expansion of facilities, and caused largely due to the excellent penetration of low-cost aircraft carriers, low-cost airlines. They're being able to reach the hinterland and reach the smaller towns and cities, reach the regions, and create, feeder services that could bring people to the metros at very reasonable, almost, comparable to AC train fares, very reasonable prices, which, saw a significant amount of, to share some amount of figures, you will be surprised that many airports were showing more than 25% year-on-year growth between the years. Say an airport like Ranchi or Bagdogra almost at 30%, Bhubaneswar 29%. So there were lots of airports, and mainly in these untapped areas where there was potential, but there had not been enough flying, was showing tremendous growth. So against that backdrop, all of us were suddenly hit, where we were seeing phenomenal growth. We were suddenly hit by the onslaught of corona, and then we saw a large number of international passengers coming into the country in February and March. But then with the lockdown and the banning of domestic and international flights, we saw that the aircraft activity the flying activity, aviation activity came to a standstill. And more than 600 aircraft are now parked in the country. The 600 aircraft, commercial civilian aircraft, which used to be in the skies, are now parked at various airports across the country. And we are all hopeful, and we are in the process of working out SOPs to start the operations in the post-corona world. And we are hopeful that very soon, we will see a resumption of flying activity, at least in the domestic sector initially, and then later on perhaps the resumption of international commercial flights. Now, this is the situation as it exists now. So definitely we were all caught unawares, caught by surprise. But then even then we did not let the guard down. And I would like to share some of the activities that we did in this lockdown period when domestic commercial flying was stopped. And in the absence of commercial flying, the entire aviation community, which is the airlines, the cargo operators, the airports, all had to step up the supply of essential cargo, because now, PPE, that is personal protective equipment, medical equipment, also testing kits for this virus, corona, had to be shipped and airlifted to various parts of the country, to the extreme north in Jammu and Kashmir, to Ladakh, to the far northeast, to deep south in Kerala and other places. And we were able to set up, the ministry set up a kind of a mechanism called Lifeline Udan, where the Ministry of Civil Aviation worked with the airlines and the airport operators, the cargo companies and the shippers and freighters. And initially you would hear of that, but now there was a seamless movement, and you don't hear of any problems caused anywhere in the country because of shortage of medicines or shortage of medical equipment or shortage of PPE or even testing kits. So all of us have heard how corona testing was ramped up in this period. And this was a role which was played by the aviation community. Even the Air Force pitched in, and they also did several flights where they helped in to carry these efforts. To give you an idea of the entire operation, totally, if we see, 518 flights have operated under this Lifeline Udan, and the airlines that participated were Air India, Alliance Air, Indian Air Force, and private carriers. Out of these 518, 300 of these flights were operated by Air India and Alliance Air, and the cargo transported till date is about 874.78 tons. And the aerial distance covered by all these flights is almost 492,000 kilometers. So my compliments to the aviation professionals who are there in this webinar today for the excellent work that has happened. Material has been carried by helicopter. It has gone to northeast island territories, even to Andaman and Nicobar. And also one very important thing, air bridge was established with East Asia for transportation of pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and COVID-19 relief material. And this was mainly brought in from Shanghai, Hong Kong, and other places in China, even from Seoul. And we lifted a large amount of, with the help of private carriers and freight operators, we were able to lift a large amount of medical equipment from the Far East and bring it to the country for use. So this was one significant activity that happened, and this kept most of the airports and the airlines and the cargo community busy in the last few weeks, in the last 2 months. And that has given a tremendous sense of satisfaction and pride to all of us associated with this effort, that this was a time when the nation needed these services the most, and we were able to provide them to a reasonable level of satisfaction. Going ahead, the second activity that we were all involved in was, of course, facilitating the repatriation of stranded foreign nationals who were stranded at various parts of the country, and the several international and national airlines help in the process of transporting them away from places where they were stranded. For instance, lots were stranded in Goa. There were several stranded in Mumbai, several in South India, and some in Delhi. And we saw special flights which were operated by the embassies to evacuate these stranded foreign nationals who were left behind in the country once the lockdown started. And the other activity was the Vande Bharat mission that the Government of India launched from the 7th of May, when the Air India mainly took several flights.
Is being recorded.
It took several flights out of the country and brought back stranded Indians. And we have had in the first phase a total number of about, from the 7th to the 12th, almost nearly 9,000, 8,587 Indians have come back. And Air India is now ready to launch the next phase, which is to other countries. These flights mainly came from US, Gulf, UK, and Singapore. And in the next, the Air India plans to launch more flights to carry people out, and also to bring stranded Indians from other countries which have not been touched in the last campaign. So that, according to the message I have received from Air India, they're soon going to launch activities for that, and I think the bookings and all are going to start. So I think these two activities have kept us busy and humming in the last 2 months: the process of transporting essential medical equipment, and the process of evacuating stranded foreign nationals as well as stranded Indian nationals who were stuck in various parts of the world. Now, having done this and having said that, on this positive note, of course, we are all aware of the bad news. And the bad news is that all indications are that the civil, commercial air flying is going to take some time. And we have had various, I've gone through a lot of literature, and I also have been able to listen to quite a few experts, and there are various estimates. The optimistic estimate says that there will be a 25% dip in revenues of the airport operators. I'll confine myself to the financials and operational issues of airports. I'm sure my colleague, Mr. Lohani, will talk about airlines when he comes on the mic, and he takes the mic later on. And so the optimistic estimate is a 25% decline in revenue, and the pessimistic estimate is over 60% decline in revenues in the first year. And so that naturally that the reason for that is that most people feel that it'll take some time for confidence of the people to start building up, and say when we move closer to the development of a vaccine or other preventive medicines which seem to have some effect on this new virus. We will see, till then we will see a kind of a hesitation to travel, and especially to take unnecessary, say, leisure travel, or to travel to travel on tourism, or travel for pleasure. So you will see only essential business-related travel and very hardcore travel that people want to do. And that will definitely result in a lower number of footfalls, which will affect airport operators, which will affect the concessionaires who operate, say, eating outlets, or duty-free shops, or other retail outlets at airports. So the expectation is that the first 2 quarters of this year, definitely it will be, not very positive growth rate, and hopefully all indications that we will see growth in the third quarter, in Q3 of this year, and Q1, Q2 could be periods when we will see a typical. So obviously, this kind of a situation leads to different kind of implications for airport operators, and the possible decline in revenue will obviously have to lead us to look for alternative sources of revenue, and that could take several forms. Traditionally, Airport Authority of India has been a AAA rated company, debt-free company. It has always had profits, and significantly its profits went up after the privatization of Delhi and Mumbai airports, and it earns significant revenue from these 2 private airports every year. So all this, the growth in revenue and surplus that we have seen in the last few years definitely will be checked this year. So you have to look for alternative sources of revenue, going in for external commercial borrowing, or thinking of raising money from multilateral agencies, or even borrowing from the local financial market, because if the other sources of revenue are drying up, you have to look for alternative sources of funding. Then it obviously leads us to the question of reprioritizing our capital expenditure, and most of us would be aware that we saw in the recent budget the talk of creating 100 new airports in the next 5 years. So using both greenfield and brownfield assets. So obviously we'll have to now rework and see, in light of the expected cash flow, how can we reprioritize our ongoing projects, and see how we the last mile projects which are ready, which are complete about 75-80%, prioritize them first and finish them, and then possible for projects which have not started and can be deferred for some time, we may have to do that. So all these exercises and other things we are in the process. So finding alternative sources of revenue, reprioritizing our capital expenditure plans, definitely these are all things on the cards, and we are working on that. Of course, a very important aspect is that entirely there will be new standard operating procedures at airports. Social distancing, contactless check-in counters, contactless security, all these things, and we are in the process of working out those SOPs in consultation with the ministry. And you will see a lot of trials on this going on at the private airports as well as Airports Authority of India. And I'm sure most of you would have got many videos which are floating around of several airports which have started work in this regard. So you'll see new standards and of check-in, security, and other facilities which are there at the airport to take care of the new normal, as we say, in the post-corona world. So in this, so the prognosis or the prediction of most of the experts is that the financials and the operating bottom lines will be hit for minimum a year, and in the worst case situation, it may spill over to more to the next financial year also. But given the Indian situation, where the base level is very large, and we expect the traffic, once it starts bouncing back, to come back in big numbers. And as I mentioned, that I expect that the problems will be there in Q1 and Q2. So my feeling is that we will see a rebound post September 30th, and hopefully in Q3. And we will not see that kind of a slowing down or impact as is being predicted for countries like, say, West, where already the demand was at saturation levels. And here we still have a large amount of unmet aviation demand. And as mentioned by many of my friends in the aviation sector, today in the post-COVID world, civil aviation offers the safest mode of travel, because A, you reach your destinations in time, and you don't have to spend a lot of time under the risk of exposure, especially in the domestic sector. Your flights will be maximum 2.5 hours, and you can reach your destination well within time. And with the penetration of low-cost carriers, you can reach your destinations, you can reach your destination at a price which is also very affordable and almost at par, or if not slightly higher than railway AC fares. So in all, I see, yes, we have these challenges of new operating procedures, financial hit, and slowdown of footfalls. But I'm sure that given the huge growth potential that we have in the country, we will bounce back slowly, and but there will have to be some retargeting now. So with these thoughts of mine, I'll stop here, and if there are any questions, I'll take them later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arvind. That was very succinct in the time you had to cover your two addresses. So thank you very much for that. With that, I would now request Mr. Ashwani Lohani to uh, join us and say a few words. He has been in various aspects of travel and hospitality. He has been chairman of the India ITDC, India Tourism Development Corporation. He has been the CMD of the Madhya Pradesh Tourism Development Corporation. He's an Indian Railway Service officer with a unique distinction. I don't know how he managed. It's difficult to do one engineering degree. He did four. And the subjects, my God, mechanical, metallurgy, electronic, telecommunication, all very, very different. For that, he actually got the Omega Aquaterra Limca Record 2017 notice. He has made it to that book. He also was running the Fairy Queen train, which found its way into the Guinness Book of World Records. But multifaceted person, has done many, many different jobs. I would like you to also dwell on your years of experience with railways, and not just airlines, although we're focusing on civil aviation. But there are considerable linkages between all these. Airlines are very important for airports also, and airports are very important for airlines. They need to work together. So with that, over to you, Lohani ji.
General Seth, Mr. Sidhu, my friend Arvind Singh, Chairman, Airport Authority of India, Excellencies and friends. First of all, let me wish my friend Arvind a very, very happy birthday today. It is his birthday, Mr. Sidhu told us, and all the best, Arvind. And thank you for inviting me here for this very unique event. Arvind has very nicely covered the entire gamut of aviation and majorly about airports. And not in a job right now. I'll just talk from what I've done in the past. And I'm also under lockdown. We are all locked down in the houses, not doing much. Because none of us has experience of a catastrophe like this. We have not experienced in our lifetimes. Nor shall we ever. So in effect, we all are groping in the dark, albeit based on our experiences. We really don't know what the future is going to look like, how it is going to pan out. In my life, that a day will come when no train, you have 22,000 trains running on the Indian railway system, not even one train runs for 2 months. And it is beyond our imagination. I think it has hit all of us very, very badly. We are all affected by this. And I've been in the aviation for the the last 3-4 years, from a high in aviation, double-digit growth, even touched up to, I think, 17% growth. They've come down to negative. No travel. The tourism, travel, and hospitality, they are the sectors which have taken a front hit, a collision. They are the worst hit. And aviation and railways are the worst affected. I think recently we ran some 15 odd trains from New Delhi station. It was all over the news. Talk about social distancing norms getting affected at the station, and the full station was full of people in uniform trying to control. We're talking about 15 trains, and railways runs 14,000 passenger trains every day. This is the state which we have reached. Is concerned, aviation as it is a very complex business, and airline, out of that, I always called it the mother of all businesses. Even in the best of times, airlines find it very difficult to scrape through. What to talk about making major profits. But now the time has changed, and I don't know how airlines are going to survive, or how the other components of the aviation business are going to survive, how the airports are going to survive. We're talking about a new normal, talking about social distancing norms being followed, talking about now when my planes are totally packed, every single plane which is going within India or going outside, when it's totally packed and doesn't make money, how do we survive economically? How do we find economic viability when I pack lesser number of people in the planes? And is it possible? Is social distancing possible inside an aircraft? It is possible only when you put one guy in one row. One guy in one row. Or because even if I keep the mid that is vacant, then again we have that it effectively comes to one person per row. Impossible to make an airline fly with that. Hygiene standards can be maintained. Similarly with railways, how do we maintain social distancing inside an air-conditioned coach in which 6 people sit in one particular cubicle? You will not get that 6 feet distance between 2 passengers. There also it can be maintained only if you have one guy in one cubicle. Reduce the capacity by to 16%. I don't think that is possible. And if we have it, if we do those norms, our capacity will come down so drastically. Will come down so drastically that financial viability will be an issue. So where we are faced with a very, very complicated problem, we can only pray that, well, this COVID thing should go away as early as possible. We should be able to control it as early as possible. There are no practical solutions as such. Fear of travel. This COVID episode has created in all our minds a fear of travel. I remember I was supposed to go to Kathmandu on people will not travel beyond the shores of the country. Unless, because all these usage of Zoom, domestic travel will also be affected, but domestic travel will come back faster than the international travel. That is what I feel. And domestic travel and cargo, belly cargo, is going to be the mainstay of airlines for some times to come. People are fond of traveling. That is how tourism happens. Couple of years back, about 20 years back, when I joined tourism sector, when we talked about tourism, we only talked about international tourists. We only talked about the 2 million or 3 million mark. We never looked at the domestic tourist. And even otherwise, even in recent past, when we talked about tourism, we talked about international travel. Well, that is going to change. When we talk about tourism, we'll talk about domestic travel. We'll talk about traveling from one state to another. We'll talk about traveling within the state, inter-region, intra-region travel. Well, domestic tourism and cargo is going to be the mainstay. And as Arvind rightly mentioned, air travel is going to be the safest mode of traveling. You can't get that safety in trains, and you can't get that safety in bus transport. Well, I visualize a lot of domestic travel, cargo travel. I visualize a shift from the air-conditioned classes of trains to air, because you can travel the same distance within a much shorter time frame, and a lot of shift to domestic tourism and business travel also. Well, it's not something which is very easy. It is something which has hit us very badly, and we don't have any experience of this sort of eventuality. But one thing which gives us a lot of solace is the government is handling this on the front foot, boldly, and a lot of steps which give us the confidence that, well, we are being looked after to the extent which is possible. So I think that
I ask a question from Arvind. Air clean at the airports, further clean, so that when the people have a confidence for the airport.
Definitely. There are standard protocols for upgrading the air conditioning facilities, so that these things, and work is already underway within the Airports Authority of India, and I'm sure at the other private operators also, to upgrade the air conditioning standards, so that the UV technology and other issues that you talked about, to have a top state-of-the-art air purification facilities available at the airports. So work has started, and you'll see steps in that direction in the next 3 to 6 months.
Another issue is, the pat-down search at the airport is something very irritating for the passengers. And I think during this period, when the flights are commencing, we are doing away with the pat-down search. So if that is so, can't it be done away once for all?
Well, today only you've seen some guidelines that have come from the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, that they're not going to be stamping on secure, boarding passes, then, sub-concessions that they're doing for some time. You are also aware that a lot of the security personnel during this period have contacted the disease. CISF security people themselves at Mumbai and other airports have, got down with the disease. So there is a reasonable amount of apprehension there also. So you will see contactless, searching and all these security measures. Maybe, use a long rod to run the handheld metal detector. The use of body scanners at some airports where you have absolutely contactless. So I think that will happen in the next 2-3 months. And once as I said, there is a question that, suppose there is no post-corona world, but we should be hopeful that there will be a post-corona world when we'll have some medicine or some vaccine found, and there'll be confidence, and then there will not be a need for doing these kind of things. I think these things will stay for some time.
Okay. And one more question people are concerned is that most of the activity at the airport is closed. So certain tenants at the airport, whether they'll be getting any waiver on the rentals or no?
I appreciate, Mr. Agarwal, that this is a year when we are also looking at a fall in revenue.
Conference is being recorded.
The prediction is that the pessimistic prediction, as I mentioned, is a 60% fall in revenue. The optimistic prediction is 25%. The pessimistic prediction is that we have losses for 2 years. The optimistic prediction is that we have losses for only 1 year. So we are also looking at a big hit on our incoming revenues. So we'll have to factor all that in when we decide on these kind of demands for waivers and other concessions.
Is Raman back? By any chance?
Sir, one question with your permission, which had been very popular question, because the moment we announced that we are going to have Chairman Airport Authority and former Chairman Air India on board, there have been questioning coming in our portal. And the question is that you must ask Mr. Lohani his popular slogan, Desh Videsh to Aas Paas. And from Mr. Chairman, Ude Aam Aadmi Chappal Wala. In दोनों का कैसे समर्थन होगा? How we will go ahead with this? There are many questions on this concept.
देश विदेश से आसपास की जो बात है, आसपास टूरिज्म में एक शब्द कॉइन किया गया था, बिकॉज आसपास की बात करें तो मैं हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ। इसका मतलब ये है कि आप अपने जहाँ रहते हैं उसके आसपास की जगहों को एक्सप्लोर करें, देखें। It goes much beyond domestic tourism. Domestic tourism is something like a person from Gujarat traveling all the way to Assam, or somebody from Delhi going to Kerala. But there are two more segments beyond that. You explore your own state, go to different regions of the state, from one region of the state to another region of the state. And within one region of the state, from one place within a region to another place within the same region. This is what we said was Aas-Paas. So now, because people will not like to travel overseas, they will not like to travel long distance within the country, they will not like to leave their homes and go far off. So they will explore places, nearby places, which they can just drive down and go. That is what I say, movement from Desh Videsh to Aas-Paas.
Pawaji, I'm back now. Sorry about that. Something like COVID-19 that hit my desktop also. Fred, a question from the ambassador of Denmark, Freddie Swain.
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon to everybody. I have a question. We should not really just dip into the darkness, but how is the future expansion of the airport infrastructure of India? Is that going to be continued, or will it see a standstill? Thank you.
There will be no standstill. There will definitely not be a standstill, but there will be a reprioritization of expenditure. Because, pre-corona, we had the Airports Authority of India and the other private operators, we had very ambitious investment plans. If you had to speak of the Airport Authority of India, we had an investment plan of investing 25,000 crores of rupees over the next 5 years to build 100 new airports. So definitely, and most of it was going to come from our internal, revenue accruals, because we were a cash-rich organization generating surpluses. Now, given the fact that we don't expect such surpluses to happen at least this year, and maybe, if the pessimistic prediction is correct, maybe next year also. So there will be a reprioritization of expenditure, and definitely there will be some projects which have not taken off as yet. We will be shifting them to start in the next financial.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was a question from Scott Knox to AAI specifically. Scott, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Raman. Great. I just wanted to say thank you, a great platform. My question dovetails with the ambassadors and with the positive perspective of having the airport authority lead an effort to engage DigiYatra. And I have 3 reasons that I think this is the ideal time. In a sense, as one door closes, another opens. This is the perfect time. The airport authority has had experience developing DigiYatra through several airports, pilot projects, others. The airports are less occupied with day-to-day operations, so installing and getting these systems in place would be good. So the low throughput, but ideally, DigiYatra is about automation, and the automation for security, tickets, baggage, security check, and then entry to the gates would allow a flow with much less contact. So in a sense, it would be taking the circumstance and creating a much better that when the airports open at full steam, they have the opportunity to serve the public more efficiently and more safely. So that's my suggestion. I'd be interested in responses. I also have a short video that describes that for people who may be less familiar with what DigiYatra is in terms of the change in airports.
Scott, your question is okay. Arvind, maybe you can.
Yeah, well, basically DigiYatra is we are doing a pilot project at 4 airports for e-boarding and contactless boarding and other check-in systems. We're using artificial intelligence, facial recognition software. So any suggestions of how to scale it up given this new post-COVID situation, we are welcome. Any suggestions?
Okay, Lohani, any response at your end to that question from Scott? Hello, Ashwani, Lohani. Okay, for the moment we'll move on. There's a question.
Particular from
sorry, yeah. Go on.
Nothing in particular from my end. Except
from your end.
In fact, yes, right now planes are not flying and trains are not flying. Time to put in systems, look at the maintenance, do a lot of groundwork.
Okay. Well, at least Scott, you had some positive angle to the whole thing, despite all the despair and gloom around us. Question from Mr. R.K. Tyagi, former chairman of Pavan Hans, and who's on the board of Air India currently. Over to you, Tyagi.
Good afternoon, Lohani Sahab.
Namaskar, Tyagi. Namaskar.
I'm sure you're doing very well, sir, and planning now the next phase of post-COVID, something new in tourism and aviation with this vast experience. My suggestion basically was for Mr. Arvind Singh. Now, when we talk of Airport Authority of India, we just can't talk like an organization who is talking in terms of finances, that revenues will be lesser and there'll be difficulties. Airport Authority of India is basically an institution builder for India as far as the airport infrastructure is concerned. And my suggestion was particularly for Juhu Airport. It is in fact the costliest airport in India in terms of lease rentals, and mostly there are small helicopter operators and MROs. So it will be in the fitness of the things that smaller operators who are being hosted at Airport Authority of India airports must be given a holiday for at least 3 to 6 months. And this is more desirable keeping in view that already we have taken a decision to do away with the revenue sharing for the joint venture airports. So will Mr. Arvind Singh like to consider it and give a help to the smaller operators who are on rentals with AI, especially keeping in view that Airport Authority of India's income per year on the revenue sharing of these PPP airports, in fact, JV airports, is something like 3,000 crore per year. Keeping this in view, I think it will be like a big elder brother, AI's responsibility to help the smaller operators and give some holidays on the rentals. This is my submission to Mr. Arvind. And of course, wishes for a birthday as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We'll examine this suggestion of yours. We'll examine it dispassionately and on merits.
There's a question from Varun Singh of Saab of Sweden. Over to you, Varun.
Yes, good evening all. My question is, actually already was answered. It was about the procurement of equipment for all the upcoming airports and the previous tenders which were going on. How will they be impacted? And this question was directed to Mr. Arvind of the AAI. But if it's been answered, it's okay.
It's been answered, you saying?
Yes, I was partially answered, and that was good enough for now. But thank you.
Oh, okay, that's good enough. Yeah. Mr. Gurmukh Baba, you had a question for Lohani ji. Could you please put your question across?
Mr.
Lohani, yes, Mr. Baba.
Shall I repeat because the audio was missing?
Yes.
Please.
Sir, Namaskar. Myself, GS Baba. I worked for the Airport Authority, and for long we had been thinking and we had been listening that the airlines are cribbing for fuel consumption heavy on them. And they have been also telling that there are shorter routes available to them, but they will have to take the longer routes. And there are some defense restrictions. And if we are genuinely thinking of now helping them, and since now the airspace has thinned off, and there is a lot of space available in the air, can we think of some rationalization of airspace, of course, in defense coordination? That was my concern, sir.
This is something which the government will have to take a view on that, taking into account various factors. But one thing is there, whenever there is a flight, whether it's an international flight or a domestic flight, we attempt to find the best route for that flight, so that the least amount of fuel is used. But as far as airspace rationalization is concerned, I think it's a much issue which will have to be looked at.
Thank you.
If I may add to this, on this question, recently a presentation was made by the Secretary before the Honorable Prime Minister, and he is directed that the concerned authorities go ahead with this and see how we can have this airspace rationalization work going on. And there is, work and talks have started. So, the area that you hinted of shortening some flying routes and making aircraft traffic, there is work going on.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I have a question, a comment first, and then the question, or at least your view, for both the speakers. Daniel Bersher, the CEO of Zurich Airport International, has recently opined that there is a need for a smooth and seamless flow of airport traffic and passenger traffic, reducing touch points and physical interaction. Now that this is the time, perhaps he says, to integrate check-in, security check, immigration into one biometrical enabled process, which will need, of course, a coordinated approach. What is the current thinking of the airports and the airlines? Will have to work together very closely to make this kind of thing work in the first place. So would you like to comment and tell us whether you are thinking on those lines?
As I mentioned earlier, the question was asked about Digi Yatra. I mentioned that we are doing a pilot at 4 airports. And once the result of those 4 pilots are there, as I said, we'll welcome any suggestions to scale it up. And we were expecting pre-corona for that work of the pilots to get over by September of this year. But post-corona, definitely they will take, the project will get slightly delayed. But that is because, you need investment in hardware as well as software, facial recognition software and other things. So we will definitely be, if the results are very good in this pilot, we'll definitely be thinking of scaling up that process. But in the interim, as I said, we are preparing other alternative ways of doing contactless security, contactless check-in, and other things at all the other airports across, as and when commercial flying resumes.
Okay. I think this is where security will also have to be a little more practical, because this kind of combination will require a lot of giving in by them. But let's hope that you can get this working.
There is one view that we need equipment like body scanners and other things which go in for contactless. So there is discussions going on.
Good. We have actually crossed our scheduled time at the moment, but there are a couple of questions. When I got logged off, unfortunately, when I got struck with a problem, that time the questions I had made noted on the screen, they've all disappeared. So what I will request some of the potential questioners to do, would you please identify yourself, and if there is a question left, you could put that question quickly, and then we will try and move on to the next stage. That was quite a comprehensive. I missed some questions, but good old Vijay Agarwal did step in, I'm told, at that time, and was able to pose those questions, and they were suitably answered by both of you. So thank you very, very much indeed. As we traverse through these turbulent times, I guess all we can do is pray for a new dawn awakening for India and the rest of the world in the not too distant future. And hopefully this very important area, which is aviation travel, finds its way back on its feet, and we are able to move on. Can't say as if nothing has happened, because these problems will remain etched in our minds for a very, very long time. And this is not a virus which has a half-life and is going to miraculously disappear. And no amount of clanging of kitchen utensils, lighting of candles, tapasya, prayers, and havans will ease our problems any further. But on that note, a very big thank you from me, and I would like to request Vijay Agarwal, Vice President of FAST, to propose a vote of thanks and
Ladies and gentlemen, yes. You have heard of our learned speaker about the issue and challenges involved in reviving the aviation sector. I think its revival will also depend on efficacy and speed of implementation of its strategies to gain the passengers' trust, which is most important. A specific concern emanating from fear of well-being can lead to substantial drop in air travelers, where lack of social distancing will be seen as a limiting factor in ensuring well-being on the board of aircraft. The concept of air travel will have to undergo a sea change before we start full-scale commercial operation while restricting the spread of COVID-19 virus. We have to live with this new normal. Let me first express my gratitude to Shri Arvind Singh, Chairman, Airport Authority of India, Shri Ashwani Lohani, former Chairman, Air India and Railway Board, who is, in spite of their hectic schedule at a short notice, agreed to speak on post-COVID scenario in aviation. I also take the opportunity to thank Mr. Paul Jensen, MD, EBTC, and Team Leader Business Support Project, European Economic Group, CEO, EBG Federation, Shri Raman, Sidhu, who agreed to share the platform with FAST on this important issue of revival of aviation sector and for providing all technical support. I am grateful to His Excellency Mr. Freddie Swane, Ambassador of Denmark, Mr. Milan Movaka, Ambassador of Czech Republic, and Mr. Birgit Opener Warschauer, Ambassador of Austria, and others from embassies for their presence. I am grateful to participants from Ministry of Civil Aviation, Airports Authority of India, Pavanhans, Air India, DGCA, ERA, FAST, and EBG members for sharing their thoughts with us. We profusely thank all of them. Our grateful thank to President FAST, General KM Seth, and Board of Trustees and other eminent dignitaries who have given their unstinted support, help in organizing this webinar. once again, we profusely thank all the participants for being part of this webinar. Thank you very much.